Okay, so get ready to dive into something a little different today. We're going deep on, well, pessimism.
Pessimism.
Yeah, pessimism. You know, that whole glass half empty thing.
Right. Usually not the most popular topic.
Definitely not a feel-good subject, but stick with us, because today's deep dive is all about the unexpected advantages of, well, being a bit of a pessimist.
Advantages of pessimism. This I've got to hear.
You and me both. So look, we're going off this excerpt, and it basically argues that pessimism, while, yeah, it's got a bad rap, can actually be pretty darn useful.
Okay, I'm intrigued. I mean, we all know the downsides, right? Feeling down, focusing on the negative.
Exactly. But what if I told you that those seemingly negative traits could actually be strengths in disguise?
Strengths. Okay, you're really piquing my curiosity now.
Let's start with the basics then, shall we? What exactly is pessimism, besides just, being a bit of a Debbie Downer?
Well, at its core, pessimism is a tendency to focus on negative outcomes, to anticipate problems.
It's like always expecting the worst.
Pretty much. It's like that little voice in your head saying, hey, what's the worst that could happen in every situation?
Okay, I'm already feeling a little anxious just thinking about that. But according to this research we're diving into, this expect the worst mindset can have some serious upsides. Let's start with the first one, planning.
Pessimists, by nature, are planners. I mean, meticulous planners.
Really? Why is that?
Well, because they're constantly thinking about what could go wrong. They're not just thinking about what they want to happen, but also about all the things that could derail their plans.
Ah, so they're already 5 steps ahead, envisioning all the potential obstacles and figuring out how to deal with them.
Exactly. Think of that friend who packs for a weekend trip like they're going on a month-long expedition into the wilderness.
Oh, I know that type. Always prepared for every possible scenario, even the most outlandish ones.
Right. But on a more serious note, that kind of thinking can be really valuable in, say, a business context.
Oh, absolutely. So instead of being caught off guard when things inevitably go wrong, they've already got backup plans and contingencies in place.
Exactly. It's less about doom and gloom and more about strategic foresight. And that actually leads us to the next advantage, risk management.
Makes sense. Pessimists are always playing devil's advocate, right? Always looking for the potential pitfalls.
Exactly. They're not afraid to ask the tough questions, challenge assumptions, and consider all the downsides.
I see your point. But doesn't that lead to, constant worry and hesitation? Could it be paralyzing, preventing you from taking risks?
Well, it could if it's not managed properly. Remember, we're talking about harnessing pessimism, not letting it rule your life. A healthy dose of pessimism helps you assess risks without letting fear shut you down completely.
Okay, so it's like a proceed with caution sign, not a road closed sign.
Exactly. It's like having a built-in internal auditor, always double-checking your plans for weaknesses, for vulnerabilities. It's a valuable skill in many aspects of life, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So we've covered planning, risk management. What other surprising advantages does this glass half-empty perspective have to offer?
Well, this one might sound counterintuitive, but pessimism can actually contribute to greater emotional resilience.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, because pessimists tend to set their expectations lower, they're less likely to be completely crushed when things don't go as planned.
So they're kind of buffering themselves against disappointment by not getting their hopes up too high in the first place.
Exactly. It's not that they don't feel disappointment at all. It's just that it might not hit them with the same intensity as someone who is expecting a flawless, picture-perfect outcome.
Interesting. It's like they're mentally prepared for the bumps in the road, so those bumps don't feel quite as jarring. So I've got planning, risk management, emotional resilience. But what about actual, performance? Does pessimism affect how people perform under pressure?
Well, some studies suggest that in certain situations, a pessimistic outlook can actually enhance performance.
Wow, really? That's fascinating.
For example, there was this study on surgeons, and it found that those who leaned towards pessimism tended to be better prepared for complications during surgery.
Oh, wow. I can see how that would make sense. They've already mentally rehearsed those what-if scenarios, so they're not thrown off when things take an unexpected turn.
Precisely. They've anticipated the potential problems and have strategies ready to address them. It's almost like they're mental preppers, always ready for whatever curveballs life throws their way.
I love that analogy, mental preppers. Okay, so we've seen that pessimism can have some real benefits, but let's be real, no one wants to walk around feeling gloomy all the time. How can our listeners take these pessimistic superpowers and use them to their advantage without, succumbing to the negativity?
That's a great question. And the key here is balance. It's about finding that sweet spot between pessimism and optimism, a state of balanced realism.
Balanced realism. I like that.
Yeah. You acknowledge the risks, the potential problems, but you don't let them completely overshadow the possibilities, the positive outcomes.
It's like you're aware of the potholes on the road, but you don't let them stop you from enjoying the journey.
Exactly. And, that kind of cautious optimism can also be a real asset when it comes to critical thinking.
How so?
Well, a healthy dose of pessimism encourages you to question assumptions, to not just take things at face value. It pushes you to dig a little deeper, to consider alternative viewpoints, and to really analyze information before forming an opinion.
It's like having a built-in BS detector.
Ha! I like that. That's a great way to put it.
So we've talked about thinking pessimistically, but how do we move from just thinking that way to actually using it to our advantage? Any practical tips?
Well, one really powerful strategy is to reframe pessimism as a motivator for action. Instead of letting those what-if thoughts paralyze you, use them as fuel for proactive problem solving.
So instead of just worrying about what might happen, you channel that energy into figuring out how to prevent those things from happening.
Exactly. You identify the potential negative outcomes and then ask yourself, okay, what steps can I take to minimize the likelihood of those things actually occurring?
It's like turning lemons into lemonade, but with a slightly pessimistic twist.
Huh. I love that. And even when those negative outcomes do happen, because let's face it, sometimes they will, you don't beat yourself up about it.
Right, you treat it as a learning experience.
Exactly. You analyze what went wrong, you figure out what you can learn from it, and then you use that knowledge to improve your approach next time.
It's all about turning those setbacks into stepping stones. But as we've discussed, balance is key. How do we make sure that pessimism doesn't, take over and turn us into complete cynics?
Well, it's essential to cultivate optimism right alongside pessimism.
So it's not an either-or situation.
Nope, not at all. You can embrace the benefits of pessimism without letting it dominate your entire worldview. Make sure you're actively seeking out positive experiences, celebrating your accomplishments, and surrounding yourself with people who uplift and inspire you.
It's about creating a counterbalance to those pessimistic tendencies.
Exactly. And remember, life is inherently unpredictable. You can't control every outcome, and that's okay. Part of navigating life is learning to accept that uncertainty.
That's such an important point. Trying to micromanage every aspect of life to prevent every possible negative outcome is a recipe for anxiety and exhaustion.
Absolutely. And finally, if you're finding those pessimistic thoughts creeping in a bit too often, try incorporating some mindfulness practices and gratitude exercises into your routine. Focusing on the present moment and appreciating the good things in your life can help create a more balanced and resilient mindset.
So to wrap things up, it seems like a little bit of pessimism, when used strategically, can actually be a powerful tool for planning, risk management, critical thinking, and even personal growth. Who knew?
Right. And as you go about your day-to-day, think about this. Could consciously embracing a bit of that what-if thinking actually help you navigate challenges more effectively and achieve greater success? How could you integrate some of these ideas into your own decision-making processes? Food for thought.
Definitely food for thought. Well, that wraps up another deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. Always enjoy exploring these unconventional ideas.
Until next time.
See you then.